Hey everyone, I want to talk to you today about the top EB-1A visa mistakes that I see over and over. I keep seeing them. As you know, we handle EB-1A visas for engineers. My name is Priya Alagiri. I'm an immigration attorney, and I talk to EB-1A visa applicants all day, every day. And I can tell you there are common mistakes that I see that are easily repairable. The first one is filing too early. So if you have it in your mind, you want to file your EB-1A, your priority date is current, maybe your child's aging out, something like that, and you want to file. You've decided you want to do the EB-1A and you want to file. So filing too early can really lower your chances of success. You have to think about every single criteria and make sure you have explained why you meet every single criteria. You have to explain it very clearly. If it takes an extra day or two, an extra week, then so be it, because this is your chance. And how you present the information, how you support your claims, all of that matters. So take some time, figure out your criteria, map it, and understand how you're going to explain it to the Immigration Service, because they will look at the substance. And again, if it's going to take you a little bit longer to pull the petition together, it's worth it. Second mistake I see all the time is just focusing on the criteria, focusing on meeting 3 criteria and not thinking about the final merits analysis. So the final merits, as you may know, is the second step evaluation that the Immigration Service conducts. So first they'll see whether you meet 3 criteria. If you do, they'll then conduct a final merits analysis. And that's what I see. That's where I see people kind of flounder a bit. So yes, it's important to meet the 3 criteria, but you have to also pass the final merits. The Immigration Service is focusing on final merits more so in the last year than ever before. So it's important. And final merits means the immigration officer is going to look at the quality of your evidence. So it's not just marking check boxes that you've met the 3. They're just going to look substantively at your overall application. And it's subjective on the immigration officer's side, but they will evaluate whether you met the criteria at a very high level. And that's why I say quality matters, not just ticking the check boxes. So think about the final merits. Third mistake I see very, very often are generic reference letters. So the reference letters should be as detailed as possible, not contain like these vague references like, oh, he's really excellent, I would recommend him, he's amazing. No. The recommendation letters should be from people who themselves are experts in the field, who can speak about what you designed, developed, innovated in a deep way, explain how it's groundbreaking in the field, and be very persuasive in the storytelling of what you created. So what is really important and what you should focus on the recommendation letters are the original contributions. That is usually what the reference letters are used for. So make sure your expert talks in detail about what you developed. Make sure that, it needs to be technical to explain what you've accomplished, but not overly technical. And typically, like I said, the letter should focus on the original contributions criterion. Mistake I see is compensation. Not being specific enough in the geographic benchmarking. So the Immigration Service doesn't say you need to use this data or that data, which is great, because as long as you can make a compelling argument, they kind of have to go with it. I mean, other than saying that your salary needs to be higher than others in the domain, we don't have any other really benchmarks that we're required to follow. So if you're going to argue compensation, and I think everyone should argue compensation, because you can always make a persuasive argument that you meet compensation. So think about how you are going to classify your position or occupation, because that matters when you're using wage surveys. And think about the geographic location that you are going to use. So obviously, if you're in Ohio, let's say, and you're looking at salaries in the Bay Area where I am, the Silicon Valley, that's going to be a mismatch. So think about your location, and as long as it's credible, legitimate, you should use the geographic location that works for you. Another mistake I see is language, the language used in your petition support letter. Like, for example, saying things like, I participated in, I contributed to. So be more active or more forceful. Rather than saying participated in, say led. Or I oversaw. I accomplished. I built. Think about the I terminology and thinking. So it conveys to the immigration officer that, you're not part of a team roster. They want to know that you really led the team. So make sure, of course, you have to be, you can't misrepresent, but very often I see applicants downplaying or using kind of this soft language, and that mistake could cost you. Next mistake I see is skipping the peer review criterion, otherwise known as judging the work of others. It's probably the easiest criterion to meet. So if you're judging the work of others, evaluating, reviewing any type of work product, you could meet that criterion. You don't have to be reviewing scholarly articles, conference papers. So, think a little bit more broadly, make an argument. I see many people just leave this criterion on the table, and I think it's one of the easiest ones to win. But the last mistake I see made is not defining your field properly. So your field should be as narrow as possible, but it should really cover all of your accomplishments. So if you if you make it too narrow and you did something, groundbreaking like 10 years ago, you want to use what you've done 10 years ago. You want to add that groundbreaking, innovation or publication. So you should find a field that would cover that. Even if you changed, fields, try and find the common thread and use that, because it matters. It matters. Your field matters. Being too broad is not going to work either, because if you just say, oh, I'm a top software engineer, I mean, they'll just look at every software engineer in the US and compare you to them. You want to be as narrow as possible, but broad enough to cover all of your accomplishments. So that's it for today. Please contact our office. I would be happy to meet with you, go through the criteria with you, discuss what you meet, what criterion you may not meet, and our office would love to help you with your application.